Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to Top 10 Middle Game Ideas number 1, Attack the King. So in this first video on Attack the King, we're going to take a look at the Greek gift sacrifice. So I'll be showing a lot of examples of that. Before I do, I wanted to first mention that there's a few videos I've done as an introduction to the middle game. So if you're viewing this as the first game in the series, there's actually a series of 4 introductory videos that are the beginning of this middle game playlist. You might want to check them out at some time. They give kind of an overview, whereas these top 10 videos are going to all be very specific about particular ideas. So I found an example of the Greek gift sacrifice that dates to 1620. So to give a little historical perspective, 1620 was the year that the Mayflower sailed to America to found Plymouth Colony. So this is quite a long time ago. And it was played by Greco. Now we have these games from Greco because of a manuscript. He wrote a manuscript with these games in it, and then it was later published in the 1650s. So we don't know a lot about these games other than the fact that they were published and they have Greco's name on them. All of them are Greco against some unknown player, and some of them look a bit artificial, like maybe these were constructed as examples rather than actually played games, but some of them look like regular games, so it's hard to tell exactly what's going on with that. Well, let's show you the game. E4, E6, so it's a French defense. D4, Knight F6, not the most popular move these days, but there's no real mistake here. I'm just going to play out the opening moves till we get to the critical moment. Both sides are just kind of developing. Now we see the first unusual move, H4 from Greco. Greco has the white pieces. In fact, this looks kind of modern. You see this H4 move in a lot of modern games, so it's kind of funny, even though it's from 400 years ago. So his opponent castled here, and castling is a mistake. And the reason it's a mistake is because we are set up here for the Greek gift sacrifice. The Greek gift sacrifice is sacrificing the bishop on h7 after the king is castled. And all the moves come with tempo. So I just want to point out the configuration here. The bishop here is looking at that pawn. The knight here is looking on the g5 square, and the queen is on this diagonal ready to come into h5 after the knight moves with tempo. So those are the 3 key points. And from the defensive point of view, this knight needs to be chased away. So what's going to happen is the move e5 comes with tempo, and then the sacrifice happens as soon as black castles here. And also it's important that this pawn gives white the ability to place this knight on g5, even though black has some force against g5. Anyway, let's put the move here. Black castled. Greco played e5 immediately. And up until black castled, the game was about even. And after castling, white is just winning. Because this move comes with tempo, the knight has to move, and now, boom, bishop takes h7, check. And if you're ever stuck in this situation where bishop has just grabbed this pawn on h7, usually your best response is to take that bishop, oddly enough. But the thing is, if you just move your king to h8, bad things are going to happen anyway, right? The queen is still going to come to h4, or the h-file will be opened up, and you'll also be down a pawn, and there's this bishop still alive, threatening around the king. So unless you see that you're getting mated immediately, you might as well take that bishop and hope to survive. You could always resign too, but assuming you want to play on. If you see you're getting mated immediately, then you shouldn't resign. You should move your king to h8 and play on as well. See if your opponent can finish you off. But that's why it's almost always better to take, because unless you can see that immediate mate, there are times you can escape this, and we'll talk about that. Okay, so knight g5 check. That's the idea. And now we see one unique feature of this game, which is because of the h-pawn and the rook on the h-file, white hasn't castled yet. Even though this square is guarded and black can trade off that knight, it opens up the h-file with check. And now it's a mate. It's a forced mate from this point, whether the king goes forward or backwards. He went backwards, the queen comes to h5. Let's see, f5 was tried here to give the king an escape square, but just the pawn push g6 cuts off the escape. Let's see, he moves the rook to the side, but now because the queen is behind, because the rook is behind the queen can come all the way forward to h8, and that is mate, so the king doesn't have time to run around to f8 and e7. And if we back up a little bit, if the king had come forward, sometimes it's an idea to escape by coming forward to the g6 square, but this doesn't work at all. The queen can still come to h5 with check. Once again, because the rook file has been opened here, the queen comes in with check, and the king has to come forward. This is kind of a funny line, but it can't come back. All these squares are covered, so it has to come forward to f5, and then the queen checks from h3, and if the king goes back here, it's a little bit of a yo-yo action. The queen goes into h7, and that is mate. So king g6, queen h7 mate, and if king to e4, then queen to d3 is mate, cutting off all the escape squares of the king. And notice the bishop is cutting off that final escape square. So that's how the game would finish if the king had come forward. So that's it for this first example. Let's see. Yeah, he would have. In this case, he would have survived a bit longer if he had gone to king. If he had put the king on h8, but that would still be winning for white. Let's go all the way back. I wanted to say a few things about where I got this game. There's the I was using the website chessgames.com, and they have this nice feature called Sacrifice Explorer, so you can enter in a move like bishop takes h7 check, and then find games where that had been played, and that was how I was able to find this game. So I just wanted to mention that. I'll include a pointer to chessgames.com in the description to the video if you want to find examples like that. The Sacrifice Explorer, it might be one of the premium features. There's a lot of things that are just free on the site. Some things are premium features, and you have to pay $30 a year fee to get access to them. But that's where this came from. This next example was played some 400 years later by me in a blitz game, and it shows a more typical kind of example, perhaps. And it also shows that you can look for these patterns and recognize them even in a quick time control game. They're not really that hard to find. So, and it's a completely different opening. It shows that this can arise. The Greek gift sacrifice can arise under many different conditions. So this is going to be a Nimzo Indian, and all these moves are fine. We're going to just get to a point where there's a single mistake. I'm playing the Rubinstein variation, and just going with c5 here, and I decide to kick the bishop here to encourage the exchange. Castles, bishop d3. So I'm getting that setup started with the bishop on d3 and the knight on f3. b6, knight f3, knight c6. Castles. So all these are normal moves. Bishop a6, and black is preparing to start bringing some pressure against the c-pawn, which is weak in this case. And I'm preparing to play the Greek gift sacrifice. I push on with e4, which is a good move in any case, right? I'm just grabbing more space in the center. And the next move by black actually loses the game. Black can continue to play with an equal game by playing a move like d5 here. And that's just fine for black. But this move here, moving another piece away from the king side, is just asking for trouble. And now everything comes with tempo from this point forward because I push e5, now the knight drops back, and I take on h7 with check. Now that's another key point, and the reason why people maybe are missing this idea sometimes if they're not specifically looking out for it. They may think that, this pawn push isn't a problem, and if the follow-up is, say, knight to g5, then they can play h6 here, kick the knight back, and nothing has gone wrong. What catches them off guard sometimes is you don't start that way. You have to start with the sacrifice. You start with the most forcing move here. And in this case, taking is the better of the alternatives. It's just too open over here. You won't survive. The knight comes forward to g5, defending the bishop, and then the queen comes out to h5 if the king just went to h8. So taking is the best move here. Now the knight comes into g5 check. Notice that the bishop, the dark squared bishop, has been traded off. That was the piece that got traded here. So there's no strong defender of the g5 square. The queen is looking at g5, but the knight is defended by the bishop. So this bishop is playing a key role as well. You have to be sure you can get in this knight g5 move. Now the king went back here, which is the best choice. The queen comes forward to h5, and now there's a mate threat. The chess engine is giving the best move as queen takes g5 check, which, of course, queen takes g5, rather, just sacrificing the queen. He tried knight to f6, defending the h7 square, but of course that's also giving up a piece, and in fact it doesn't stop the mate, because after I take, he tries escaping this way by moving the rook. The queen comes into h7 check, and now we see the idea. The king is chased to f8, and the queen will come to h8, and that's mate. So that's how it would have ended. He resigned after queen h7 check. So let's look at the other option here. The king can come forward to g6 here in this case. And notice the queen can't come out to h5 now with a follow-up. You always have to be careful here. There is potentially a plan for the king to sneak out. Now, right now, all these squares are guarded, but there are cases where the king can walk away over to the queen side. Queen d3 looks like a reasonable try here. This keeps some advantage for white. If the king goes back, first of all, it gets mated, and this is kind of a nice mate, so let's show this one first. And the queen comes over here with check. Actually, when he goes to that square, the queen can come in immediately to h7 and mate. The knight's defended. Let's see. He can also go to this square, and then the queen comes over here with check, driving the king back to g6, and now the queen comes in here, and that's also mate. The queen on h7 supported by the knight supported by the bishop, and the king with no escape squares. So very pretty mate. But after queen d3 check here, queen d3 check, there are alternatives, and the best choice here is to play f5 now to try and block that. And then queen to h3 is the follow-up here. Let's play on a few moves. Knight to f6, to prevent the mate. So once again, you're getting your material back. He takes f6, king takes f6. So that's probably good enough. You've got a pawn, you've got all your material back. You've won a pawn, and you're continuing the attack. And there's no immediate mate in this case, but that's good enough to be sure that you've got a decent return on your investment of that bishop. If you get the material back and you win some pawns, then you're doing pretty good, because the attack typically continues. Okay, so let's check out the next example. This was played in 1837. We have Bourdonnais with the white pieces. It's played in France. And let's just get forward to the critical point here in the game. Once again, black is doing okay up until this point, and then he just castles. And let's look at the setup this time. The bishop, it's not on d3 this time, but it's still on this diagonal. That's the key point. The queen is here looking out at this diagonal, and the knight has access to g5. So this is a case where it's looking pretty good. Each time, though, you have to calculate all the special circumstances, and there are other things going on here besides just white setup. Now black has given up the f6 square. There's no knight on f6 defending h7, so that's one thing. And black has also given up the g5 square. There's no bishop or queen on that square, on that diagonal looking out at the g5 square. But what black has got is black has got counterattacking chances. Notice that the queen is looking at the d pawn here, and it's pinned against the king, and the knight and the queen are both attacking that pawn. So in this case, this sacrifice is not technically correct. But let's anyway, let's show what happens. Bishop takes h7 check, the king takes, and the knight comes in with check. And now the king goes back to g8. By not technically correct, I mean actually with best play, black can draw this one. And either king g8 or king g6 can lead to a draw. Let's see, white continues with queen h5, threatening mate. And now rook f to c8 is the losing move. There's not enough time to escape. So let's show how the game went. Rook f to c8. Now what's nice about this one is it shows another pattern. The queen doesn't hop into h7 immediately, but when the rook is chased away to give the king an escape so it doesn't get mated, this square is vulnerable now, and the queen takes on f7 first, check, driving the king here. And then the winning move in this position is rook to f3. A typical idea. The queen is guarding all the escape squares for the king. The queen is taken over here and driven the king back to the h-file, and now the rook can come up and over, and mate is unstoppable. That was not played in the game. Actually, after queen f7 check, king went to g8, the queen came back here to h5 check, and then came in this way and checked. And this is a typical idea as well, this maneuver with the queen. Sometimes it's important to open up the f-file, and the rook can be useful on the f-file here. King went to f8. Let's see, queen h8 check drives the brings the knight back, right? That's the only way to block the check. And then now the pawn push f5 should be played to open up the f-file, and white has a winning attack in this case as well. So that would be how the game should continue. And just wanted to show those two ideas. But now let's go back to the defense. After queen h5, there is a move here that defends. And if you want to think about it, this might be a good tactical quiz for you. Imagine you have the black pieces here, and how are you going to defend this position? Well, the move is queen takes d4 check. And if the king moves, this is kind of a nice point. If the king moves to the side, the queen comes in here to d3. And look at that. All of a sudden, the queen is defending on this diagonal the key h7 square, and there is no check there anymore. And you might think there's some way to block it, maybe with the f-pawn, but also the rook is hanging. And the rook is hanging with the threat of mate. And so black is actually winning. Let's back up. Here, after queen takes d4 check, the move that draws, white's in danger now of losing. The move that draws, or one of them anyway, is rook to f2, so that the king doesn't get chased away and the rook stays on the f-file. And now the rook moves away. And white can try f5 here to try and open things up. But basically, well, let's look at the most straightforward line before we do that. The queen comes with f7 check, and then notice the rook is pinned, so we can't do the rook lift anymore. The queen can come back to h5 and come into f7. I mean, that you've picked up a couple of pawns, but the king is escaping here. There's this check, but the knight comes over to block, and there just doesn't seem to be any way to continue here with a win. In fact, black is in danger of white is in danger that black will survive the attack and then have a little extra material and play on for a win. So at some point, I think white just has to go for a perpetual here. So that is the defense, and that's what you have to keep in mind when you're either playing for the Greek sacrifice or playing against it. You always have to look at the specifics of the position. What are all the defensive pieces you have around the king, and what are all the counterattacking ideas you have to stay in the game? Okay, let's look at another example here. I wanted to show another example from the black side to show that both sides have a chance to play the Greek gift sacrifice. This game is actually another one of my games. This was played at a slower time control. It was a game in an hour, so relatively quick, not as slow as the game in 2 hours that I usually play. So maybe my opponent was a little bit rushed. You don't see the Greek gift sacrifice so much in over the board play because people do have time to look out for it if they remember. They have time to search through it, but it still crops up occasionally. So let's take a look at this game. It's White's turn to move in this position, and it's about even. I think Black is slightly better here, but well, White plays a move that ignores the threat. So let's take a look at the configuration. We see once again the bishop is on that diagonal, the queen is on this diagonal, and the knight is prepared to hop into g4. One interesting feature of this position is the F file is already open. And that can be that's really important in making the sacrifice work in this particular case. So my opponent didn't see the threat coming and just played rook a to c1, and so I immediately threw in the bishop takes check, and now king takes h2 turns out to be the better move here between that or avoiding taking, and the knight hops in with check. But both those alternatives lose. And now the king went forward to g3, so this is an interesting attempt to escape by coming forward. And this is a good tactics quiz for you, I guess. Can you find the follow-up at this point? And this is kind of the move you have to find before playing this sacrifice. There's actually two moves here, so I'll give you credit for either one, but I wanted to show the move that I played because I thought it was kind of interesting. So if you want to work on this one for a while, you can pause the video here and think about it. I'm going to give the answer away. So the move that I played here was knight takes f2. And the key point is that if he takes back with the rook, he didn't play that way, but if he takes back with the rook, then the queen comes out with check. So the queen has access to the square around the king, and it chases the king away from defense of the rook, and then I can just grab that piece, and I'm continuing the attack. I basically have equalized the material at that point, and I'm continuing with an attack on g2. So it's actually quickly losing. So after knight takes f2, he played something else. He actually played what's considered the best move. He tried queen to d4 here, and then I followed up with the queen check, and the king runs to h2, and this is still winning. Notice the rook on the f file is doing an important job in keeping the king confined, and he can't run away from the checks here. So he goes back to h2, and now I lift the rook here, and basically there's no stopping this attack. I have this rook coming over here to the h file, and he has to start giving up material to stave off the mate. The engine is suggesting that queen takes f6 check should be played here. I think he tried g3, and I just brought my other rook over, get all my pieces into the game. That way I have one rook that controls the f file and the other rook that controls the h file. And basically there's no stopping the attack at this point. So that's how, well, the game went on for a long time. I don't want to show the whole thing, but that's the basic idea. If we go back to this position after the check, and then it's my move. Instead of knight takes f2, it turns out that knight to e5 is also winning. It's a tempo move against the queen. So if you spotted that one, you should give yourself credit too. Where can the queen go? Say the queen comes forward to d4 to try and defend. The problem is the queen still comes out to g5 with the check. The knight is guarding the square that it left, so the queen can't interpose. The king is once again driven to the h file, and let's see. The most accurate move here is knight to g4 check. Kind of funny. Let's see, is there a problem with the rook lift? f3. Okay, and then black can start to construct a defense. White can wander with the king around this way, and the attack is not so convincing there. So the continuation has to be knight to g4 check. Okay, so anyway, that's all I wanted to show on that one. Let's go back and take a look at the next game. Yeah, so this game was played between Karl Goering and Johannes Minkwitz in Leipzig in 1871. I think Goering is the same person that the Goering Gambit was named after. Once again, an example with the black pieces, and this one has a particularly nice finish. So we go forward to this point in the game, and it's White's turn to move. White plays the move knight to c4, which opens up this diagonal for the bishop. So let's take a look at where the pieces are placed. Notice the bishop is on this diagonal. The queen is not on d8, where it was in my game, but it's still on this same diagonal. So it's those two parallel diagonals, and the knight is in a position to hop into g5. So that Greek gift sacrifice is all set up here. And the knight is guarding the g4 square. I said g5, but I meant g4. Is guarding the g4 square. So placing this knight to c4, which is what was played in the game, is just asking for trouble. It's opening up the line for the bishop, and it's giving up control of the g4 square. Notice this bishop, even though it's not back on c8 where it started, it's up here where it helps control, allows the knight to g4 move in this case. So bishop takes h2 check, king takes h2, and knight to g4 check. And the king went to g1. That's probably the best choice in this case. King to g3 is similar. And now the queen came out to h4. And what's funny is that this is not the best continuation, but it's what happened in the game. So let's show this. This shows an important resource for black. If black has pieces that can control the h2 square, we saw it with the queen in the other in another line, the queen controlling h7. Here we have a bishop controlling h2. It prevents the follow-up to the attack of the queen coming in here. And this can be held, although, let's see, White makes a very instructive mistake here. But before we get to that one, let's show the best continuation here for black, the best way for black to continue the sacrifice. Because this was a correct sacrifice, it's just queen h4 had a flaw in it. The best move here is bishop to e6. And kind of strange, but at first glance, but it does two things. It opens up the f-file so that the king is not escaping easily this way, and adds a little bit of pressure there. And secondly, it comes with tempo because the queen is hitting the knight. And now the queen is threatening to come over here with h4. The bishop is no longer, the square f4 is no longer available for that bishop to block. So that's what's going on here. The rook is guarding the f4 square, so the bishop can't block, and it's coming with tempo because it hits the knight. So you had to see that bishop f4 defense and then realize you needed to make a move to stop it. So one quiet move, in a way. It still comes with the threat. And now White's in trouble. Let's see. The best defense is knight e5, which is just giving up material here because knight takes. There's a pin on the pawn there, so that's just giving the material back. And so certainly White is winning in that case. Let's see. I mean black. So if White moves the knight away. If White moves the knight away and doesn't try to give up material, then now queen h4 is the winning idea here, and there's no way to stop it. In fact, the engine is recommending queen takes g4, once again sacrificing the queen to stave off immediate mate. After rook e1, which was the second choice, notice that the f2 square is vulnerable with the rook and the knight, similar to what you saw in my game. And this comes with tempo on the queen, and the queen is threatening to come in here mate. So another nice little pattern there. So that was best continuation for black. So black made a little mistake by playing queen h4, and White found the first move in the defense correctly. He played the bishop here to f4, and now White played bishop to e4, threatening the bishop, by opening up the F file. So another idea of repositioning the bishop, and also maybe there can be a threat against the G2 pawn in some circumstances. And the move to defend here, to hold on to things, that is queen to D2. And either queen D2 or queen C1, but putting the queen on this diagonal, defending the bishop, and just holding on to that H7 square, this allows white to defend, and that would be okay for white. White would survive that and actually be better, because then the sacrifice is not justified if white can defend. So what white played instead is the kind of natural move, bishop to G3, hitting the queen, just trying to chase it away, saying, you know, I don't want you around my king. Why don't you go away? And there's just one move from black here, which wins. But it's a pretty amazing move. If you want to pause and think about this, see if you can find the move for black here. Okay, I'm giving the answer away. I don't know if I would have found this. This is an amazing move. Rook takes F2, just letting white take the queen. So that's what happened. White took the queen, and now we see this this great mating pattern here. Rook takes pawn, check. King goes to H1, only move. Rook to H2, check, only move. King goes back, and now rook to H1, mate. And we see the bishop supporting the rook, and the knight guarding the escape square, and that is that's lights out. So that's what happens if you take the queen, and that's how the game went. A very pretty finish. So I just wanted to show it for that alone. The best way to survive here is rook takes, and then queen takes, and then once again we have this situation where white has gotten the material back, or is going to get the material back, because the rook is under attack, and there's no defending it. And once again, the chess engine is suggesting queen takes G4 is the way to survive here. That's funny, but actually, because white is back, black has sacrificed some material here. Let's go ahead and show the computer line. Queen takes. If we pause at this point, there's a rook, a bishop, and a queen against a rook and two rooks and two knights. So basically a queen for a rook and a knight. But black has an extra pawn, and white's king is still exposed, and the attack is continuing. So this is still winning for black, but no immediate mate. And white can try and play on in that case. But anyway, the actual finish of the game was with this bishop takes H4, and a very pretty finish. So let's leave it like that. So that wraps this up. Wraps up this little series on the Greek gift sacrifice. I'm going to look at other ideas next. There's going to be a series of videos under the general theme of Attack the King. So stay tuned, and I will see you then.